You take a bite of a California roll, soft rice, a clean, slightly sweet seafood taste, that familiar crab note that makes the whole thing feel comforting and obvious. And for a second, your brain pauses on a question you've probably never said out loud. What am I actually eating? Then you remember the bright red and white sticks in the seafood aisle, and the label that always sounds like a warning. Imitation crab. If it's an imitation, what is it copying? And what is it really made of? That question leads from a grocery shelf to a much older story than you'd expect. And by the end, you'll have a 5-second rule that makes the answer instantly obvious. Every time. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. The name that primes suspicion. Imitation is a strange word to print on food. It sounds like confession. It sounds like a warning. In your head, it drags in other words: fake, cheap, lower quality, before you've even tasted the second bite. But this is the first clue. Imitation crab isn't hidden. It's everywhere, openly labeled, sold for decades, served to people who are paying attention and people who aren't. Scams don't like bright lighting. They prefer shadows and vagueness. This product survives in plain sight because it isn't pretending to be crab the way a counterfeit watch pretends to be real. It's closer to a stand-in, a substitute built to deliver a specific experience when the real thing is expensive, seasonal, unpredictable, or simply too much work for an ordinary Tuesday. And once you let that idea settle, the question shifts. You stop asking, "Who's lying?" and start asking, "What problem is this trying to solve?" The twist. Not fake crab, designed fish. Here's the turn that makes the whole story make sense. Imitation crab is real fish, reshaped into a crab-like texture. That sounds like semantics, until you notice how much of eating happens before flavor even arrives. Your mouth reads structure. It reads the way food pulls apart, the way it yields, the way it bounces. Crab is not only a taste, it's a pattern. Soft shreds, gentle resistance. A clean sweetness that says, "see," without shouting. Imitation crab aims at that pattern. It doesn't copy a crab, it copies the feeling of crab, and that makes it less like a lie and more like a piece of craftsmanship, an edible illusion built from something honest. To see why anyone would do that, you have to go back to a time when seafood had one big enemy: time. Origins, a 12th century answer to spoilage. Picture a coastal community long before refrigeration. The catch arrives in baskets, bright and cold from the water. Some fish are prized, others are bony, pale, or too small to fetch a good price. But all of them are perishable, all of them sliding toward waste the moment they leave the sea. In Japan centuries ago, people found a way to make those humble fish matter. They deboned whitefish, ground it, washed it, salted it, and shaped it into cakes and sticks that could be cooked, carried, and kept a little longer. The name for that paste was surimi, ground meat. Surimi wasn't created to imitate anything glamorous. It was created to stretch food, to stretch time, and to turn less valuable into still useful. It's the same impulse behind drying, pickling, salting, the quiet human habit of refusing to lose a good thing just because nature set a clock. For hundreds of years, surimi lived as tradition. Then the modern world arrived with a new kind of pressure: scale. The modern switch, when surimi learned to wear crab's clothes. By the 1970s, food science could do something earlier cooks could only guess at. It could control texture reliably. It could ship ingredients farther. It could make a product that tasted the same in January as it did in July. crab was the perfect target for that ambition. Real crab is costly to catch and laborious to process. Its quality varies by season and location. And the thing you pay for, sweet, delicate meat, comes wrapped in shells you have to fight to reach. So researchers refined surimi until it could mimic the look and bite of crab. Commercial crab sticks appeared in Japan in the mid-1970s, then traveled fast. By the 1980s, they were showing up in sushi rolls, seafood salads, and diner plates far from the waters where real crab was pulled. Not because the world was fooled, because the world recognized a trade-off it was willing to make. In the West, it arrived just as sushi was learning how to be approachable. The California roll helped, giving imitation crab a starring role. It was gentle, familiar, easy to chew, and easy to trust. In many places, it became the taste of crab for people who had never cracked a crab leg. That's how a substitute stops feeling like a substitute. It becomes the reference. What it's made of, the straight story. At the center of imitation crab is mild white fish, often pollock. The fish is cleaned and deboned, then washed repeatedly. That washing isn't sinister, it's structural. It removes fats and pigments and leaves proteins that can form a springy network when mixed. That fish becomes a smooth paste. From there, the paste is blended so it holds together and feels right on the tongue. Starches give it body. Proteins, sometimes egg white, help it bind. Small amounts of sugar and moisture-retaining ingredients keep it tender instead of dry. A little vegetable oil rounds the mouthfeel. Then come the cues that tell your senses what story to believe. Flavorings, often derived from seafood extracts, add the familiar crab note. And the red outside? That's coloring, painted on for the eye, because your brain tastes with its expectations first. If you've ever wondered whether it's real, the clean answer is this: it's real fish arranged into a new form. Why it became normal. Consistency wins. Real crab is a special occasion food. It's romantic in the messy way, cracking shells, picking meat, earning each bite. But it's also expensive, unpredictable, and inconvenient. Imitation crab is the opposite. It's uniform, it's ready, it's the same every time. For restaurants, that means stable costs and stable portions. For home cooks, it means you can make a seafood salad without turning your kitchen into a crime scene of shells. This is how many modern foods spread, not by being superior, but by being dependable. They remove friction. They turn rare experiences into repeatable ones. And yet, the question lingers because taste is personal. Does it actually taste like crab? The taste truth, sort of, by design. If you eat imitation crab plain, you'll likely notice what's missing. Real crab has flaky layers and a richness that's hard to fake. Imitation crab is softer, more even, more gently sweet. It's designed for harmony, not complexity. That's why it shines inside dishes where it isn't asked to be the star. In a California roll, the crab note is meant to sit beside rice and cucumber and avocado, like a quiet instrument in a band. In a creamy salad, it's meant to hold its shape, take on dressing, and keep tasting seafood without dominating. It does the job it was built to do. The mistake is expecting it to be a perfect twin. And if that sounds a little uncanny, remember, your senses do this all the time. A ripe peach tastes sweet, partly because it yields under your fingers. Food is a bundle of signals, and imitation crab is built to hit enough of them. Modern reality check. What people get wrong. The most common misunderstanding is emotional. People hear imitation and translate it into unsafe. But imitation crab is regulated and made from edible fish. The real difference is processing. Some people avoid processed foods on principle, and that's a personal choice. The product itself is not a forbidden object, it's a manufactured one. The second misunderstanding is nutritional shorthand. Because it sits in the seafood aisle, people assume it's automatically as healthy as plain fish. In reality, brands vary, and imitation crab often carries more sodium and added starch than a piece of fresh crab or a fillet of fish. And there's one practical point that matters more than philosophy: allergies. It contains fish, so fish allergies are a clear no. Many versions include egg, and some use wheat-based starches. And because some flavorings can involve shellfish extracts, people with shellfish allergies should read carefully instead of assuming safety. You don't need fear to handle this food, you just need clarity. The 5-second rule. What the label is quietly telling you. The 5-second rule isn't about spotting what's fake, it's about knowing which version belongs in your moment. If you're standing there thinking about price first, the answer usually arrives before the question finishes forming. Real crab costs time and money. It costs boats, seasons, hands, and patience. Imitation crab costs less because it was designed to. It's steady, predictable, and built for everyday meals, where the goal isn't ceremony, it's dinner. If allergies enter the room, the choice shifts again. For some people, real crab isn't an option at all. For others, imitation crab quietly isn't either, because fish, egg, or wheat can be just as limiting. This is the part labels exist for, not to persuade, but to protect. In 5 seconds, your body decides before your appetite does. If the meal lives inside a roll, a salad, a pasta, something mixed and shared, imitation crab often fits the shape of that moment better. It doesn't fight the dish. It holds its place and lets other flavors speak. Real crab, on the other hand, asks for attention. It wants to be noticed. It wants space. That's the rule. In 5 seconds, you're not asking which one is real. You're asking which one makes sense here. Because imitation crab and real crab aren't enemies. They're answers to different questions. A decision you can taste. So go back to that first bite under the grocery store lights. The roll tasted familiar because familiarity can be built. In imitation crab, the crab is not a hidden truth. It's a goal. A texture someone learned to reproduce. A flavor someone learned to signal. That doesn't make it noble or shameful. It makes it human. Every food is a compromise between nature and need, between what we want and what we can afford, between romance and repetition. Imitation crab is simply an honest example of that compromise, printed right on the package. And once you see it, the word imitation stops sounding like an accusation. It starts sounding like a description. If you've eaten it before, did you always know it was fish? Or did the name catch you once? Share your answer below. And if you like these quiet stories hidden inside everyday foods, consider subscribing for the next small secret.